I'd like to welcome you and welcome Deanna Momchalov. She's going to be sharing with us a little bit about her experience with Discern to Learn. So, Deanna, thank you for joining us today. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about you?
So my name is Deanna, and I am the mother of four that I have been homeschooling for almost, well, I don't know. If you consider homeschooling starting when they're born, then about 20 years. But actual school age, I guess, would be closer to 15. Um, so I have a son who graduated from homeschool, who is in his third year of university. I have a daughter who homeschooled until grade 11, went to school in grade 11 and 12, and is in a gap year. And I have two who are still at home. So I have two kids who are currently in middle school.
Thank you. You have been on a journey. This is a long process for you, and you've been at this for a long time. Congratulations on your perseverance. That's fantastic that you have continued on and pressed through all the difficulties, because as homeschoolers, we know that it's not all just a walk in the park. So it's the hardest thing we'll ever do and the most rewarding as well. Deanna, when you were looking for help, can you tell me what concerns did you have, or what actually got you out looking to see what kind of support you could find?
One of the reasons I decided to start taking classes or having my kids take classes with Discern to Learn was because we were not doing a lot of formal language arts at home. We did a lot of reading together, and we did some writing assignments or some writing projects. I had done various curriculum and various ideas with surrounding grammar, spelling, writing, but really in the end, nothing that was just like we followed really clearly. We just didn't have really a clear plan for that. And there were a number of reasons for that. One was time, one was just not finding the right fit or the right direction. And also, just I think it took me a while to realize this, but writing is just a really vulnerable thing for kids. And even though we did lots together as a family, I think that my kids were more inhibited with writing, especially with me as their teacher, because it felt vulnerable. It felt scary to put their thoughts on paper and have their mom, also their teacher, but also their mom, critique their thoughts or edit their thoughts or help them try to find a better way to say something. That felt really personal to them. And it took me a long time to realize that. But I think that as my kids aged and I realized that, oh, my desire to teach them good writing skill was also now hindering them because it was, I don't know, kind of forcing them to be really vulnerable. And then they, it caused them to just be hindered, I guess, in their writing. And so I don't even remember how we actually heard about Discern to Learn or why when we ended up starting, but I decided to give it a try. And at that time, I think my oldest would have been in maybe grade 10-ish. And my second oldest was just kind of grade 8, grade 9 age. And yeah, so it was just a really good experience for them to have somebody else who was not as personal, give them some feedback and critique and teach them some skills about writing that didn't feel so vulnerable. And then they were doing it with some peers because it was a group class. And so they had some peers alongside them who were also writing, and they could share that vulnerability together. And it didn't feel quite so alone to be able to hear critique or feedback for their friends writing as well, and to do that, some of that themselves, and realize that it wasn't a critique of them as writers, but simply a way to make their writing stronger, use stronger words, or use a more interesting thing for the reader. And then they could tell with their peers, they could tell kind of what that sounded like and read like, how it changed, how it made their friends' stories better as little things were changed. And that helped them feel safe and comfortable to be able to change their own. And so that's kind of how our journey started with Discern to Learn. And it was just really, really, really helpful. So for my oldest, it was really helpful for him because he then got some really good formal writing training as he was finishing his high school years. And he did both a lot of essay and literature, like literature reading and essay writing, and also learning some fiction skills. And I think that was just super helpful for him entering the university years to have some really good solid foundation. I don't regret the fact that we didn't do a lot of formal writing in the younger years. I think it was actually not a bad thing, and I think a lot of our reading helped them become great writers as they aged, and we didn't have to spend a ton of time working on all those things that they worked on in high school, like mechanics and grammar and just, yeah, more formal writing. So I have no regrets of how we did it. Um, and I feel like both my teens are strong writers. They all have done really well, both in university and in public high school with their writing assignments. They've been applauded by their instructors and done really well. And so now with my younger two, they do a bit more formal writing than I did with my older two when they were younger, because we're just in a good rhythm. So we just keep doing the Discern to Learn classes for them. I keep it much lighter for them. I make sure that they don't have as much pressure. I don't feel like they need to, if they don't fill all the requirements of a class, or they don't do all the things, I'm okay with it. They're still young, and they'll get there in high school, and it's okay with me. So.
Yes, exactly. I have to agree. I don't think it is a super big concern to teach all the small elements in the early years. I have seen students who have learned them all, and I've heard from parents who are having students be frustrated with all of the worksheets and learning all of the rules and all of the pieces. And students learn it so quickly when they're older. They see why it matters. They learn the pieces they need to learn, and they can move on and learn so much faster when they're older. So that's wonderful and good for you. Excellent, Deanna. Another question, well, 2 or 3 things maybe were a real advantage for you with Discern to Learn for your students and your family.
Things that specifically that have been really helpful would be, so I think for my oldest, what was really helping him was to just dive into the depths of a piece of literature and then pull out things that he could write about, like that he could just take his thoughts about it. We'd have lots of discussions around it, and then he could put that into a more formal writing task or writing assignment. I think that was really helpful for him to be able to learn that skill of organizing those kind of thoughts that went here, there, and everywhere about a certain topic or a book that he'd read, and being able to organize them in a way that was conclusive and came to beginning and an end. And so I think that was one thing that was really helpful for him. I think that the peer feedback has been helpful for all the kids. Just being able to, yeah, listen and hear from each other and learn from each other's ideas, and also from each other's mistakes, and kind of like learning along the way alongside them. Those have been some key things. I think just having someone other than me mentor them in that process. So having somebody else who can just bring them along and say, here's what you can do better, or here's where you can change this. And so then they're not hearing my voice behind them, because I don't want them to hear my voice in a way that is critical to their thoughts or ideas. Not that, not that your voice or Teresa's voice, or not that that would be critical, but simply that it's an outside source helping them get better, and doesn't feel like, oh, my mom doesn't approve of this or thinks that I could do better. It's just a different thing with writing. It's different than math. It's different than other subjects where you can kind of make corrections. It doesn't feel quite so personal. So I think just having another voice, and a voice that they also can respect. So if I'm saying, there could be better words in this, or maybe you could look for a more interesting way to say this, that why would I be the one to tell them that? Why would they respect me for that point? Like, who am I? I'm just their mom. I don't have a background in writing. I don't have I'm not a journalist or an editor or a teacher or any of those things. Whereas I think that they have respect for somebody as an outside person to bring those thoughts to them, then it kind of feels a little bit like, oh, okay, well, maybe this teacher might know better, or might have some ideas for me.
Ah, yes, the teen years. It is difficult, especially writing. You're taking your inside voice and you're putting it out there for someone else to see. And we feel that our students and our children should know that they're loved unconditionally, but for them, it's the person that they care about the most. and they don't want to disappoint. They don't want you to be disappointed or to somehow feel that they are lacking. And to them, that's a difficult thing. It's a very, very difficult. So it's a good thing to consider the voice that is speaking into your student's life. Excellent. Can you just tell me, why do you think that other parents might want to consider Discern to Learn for their student?
A couple of reasons. One would be it takes pressure off you. So you can just, there's so many things as homeschoolers that that are dependent on us. Like we often have a household to run or manage in a lot of ways. We have our normal just household stuff, whether it's meals or laundry or just taking care of regular day to day. For me, it's driving. Lots of people everywhere. Um, and in addition to that, as homeschoolers, we also are responsible for our kids' education. And it's a lot. It's a lot to carry. And it's really a full-time job in more ways than one. And so I think just having one of the boxes ticked, it sounds funny, but it's just to know that, okay, there's one box, I don't have to hold that piece anymore. It's just, I can just kind of put it to the side and know it's being taken care of. So that would be one reason that I would encourage parents to do it, because yeah, it takes the pressure off of one pretty important subject. Like language arts is a pretty main subject. It's kind of crucial all the way through. Like I said, it doesn't have to be always formal, but it is crucial to have a language arts component all the way through your education. So to know that that box is ticked is really helpful. And I guess the second would be just reiterating that, especially when it comes to writing, like that particular component of language arts, I think it's really helpful to have somebody outside take care of that, or at least be a mentor alongside of that, because that part can be a hindrance to our kids. Maybe other kids or parents don't have that same thing. I don't know, but it is something I've noticed in other people, that it can be a hindrance for our kids to write vulnerably with us as the parents, kind of being afraid that we're going to say anything. So for a while I had to, when I was at first teaching them writing, and I was always speaking into their writing, and then I had to like really step back and just enjoy their writing and never correct anything and just be like, it's great, just the way it is, just to help reassure them that I love their thoughts. And then somewhere in there, the balance of just, okay, it would be good to get some skills. It would be good to get some more formal training in this, but maybe I'm not the best person for that. Not because I can't. I'm not an expert, but I think I could be fine to teach writing. But I don't know that I'd be the best choice, especially in those high school years. It feels like reassurance. It feels like, yeah, this box is ticked, and I feel confident that now, if they're to enter post-secondary in any way, they have those skills under their belt. And it's such an important skill for university, or being able to write. Any formal writing is pretty crucial once you're in post-secondary. And so just knowing that I could relax, it just helped me to relax a little bit, to know that if nothing else, they'll be able to write, they'll be able to write a paper when they get to university. And so those would be some reasons I would encourage people.
I think you've hit on it, Deanna. That's something that as parents, we're always asking ourselves, even though we feel like we are capable or competent, sometimes we need to ask, am I the best person? And I wish that I had done that with my kids about math. Like, I wish, even though I was capable, I think that someone else really could have done a better job than me, and they would have enjoyed it more. They might have learned more, and probably they would have gone farther with their math as well if I had realized that even though I could, there are better options. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Cost is always a concern when we're talking with homeschoolers. Very often they're single income. And so I just wanted to ask you, do you think the investment's worth it for that peace of mind?
Yeah, cost is always a concern. It's always been a concern for us. We're a single income family. So yeah, it's never been a walk in the park for us to invest in education. I've always looked for deals when it comes to curriculum, or secondhand curriculum, or other ways to, yeah, cover our cost for education. but it definitely became apparent as they got older that we would have to invest in some things more significantly because they were important for the next stage of the journey. And so it was somewhat futuristic looking, like, okay, what do we need to make sure that we're covering well? um, that was kind of part of it, but also even in the present, it was a peace of mind. So I think for my, yeah, if I were to differentiate, I would say for my oldest, it was more futuristic. It was more like, I want to make sure that he's ready for the next season of life. For my second oldest, it was more present, present day. Like, what do I need to take off my plate for her education in this season? Because as I said, there were some years there that were really rocky in our education where it was feeling like everything was a drudgery, everything was pulling teeth. And I was like, what can I take off my plate that will feel different? And so those were the reasons for my oldest two why I made those choices to invest in it. And it doesn't make it easy to, spend money that you don't always have. But you kind of look at it in other ways and say, well, for her, what were my other options? Send her to school, just don't do any education in that respect and kind of deal with consequences later. If I sent her to school, what were the costs of that? And there would have been different costs associated with that. And so I think in the end, that's kind of why we decided, yeah, no, in this season, this is where we need to put our finances. And yeah, so in that sense, it was worth it.
Thank you so much, Deanna, for coming and sharing with us today your experience with Discern to Learn. And thank you for being such a supportive parent for your students. I appreciate having them in my classes, and I just love how hard they work to improve on their learning and their writing and on their time management and all the pieces that they work together on in my classes. So thank you for sharing them with me. And parents, if you have questions you'd like to learn more about Discern to Learn, please reach out. You can DM me, message me, email me. You can email at support@discerntolearn.com. Check out discerntolearn.com on the website. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, pretty much everywhere. I'll see you around.